Okay, should we get started?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, yay. So first we're gonna go around and introduce ourselves, but I'm Steph Douglas, co-founder of Open House. And I'm here with all the agents. We've got 4, and we're gonna talk about the stats from 2022. But first, let's go around. When you introduce yourself, you can wave to the camera too. We're multimedia here. Mandy.
I'm Mandy. I'm an agent with Open House Austin.
I'm Alan. Hello.
Hi, I'm Jenn.
Hi, I'm Jenn. Okay.
Hi, I'm Sydney.
Yay!
Someone looking this way.
Sid's face.
This is the best time of the year. Last year we did this. It was so fun, and it was our highest listened to episode. So it was great.
So no pressure.
No pressure, absolutely. We've added a layer of pressure too, but it's okay. Okay, so we're going to talk through stats from last year from our buyers and like kind of touch on key points and then relate them to what's happening right now so that it's very relevant for our listeners. So the first thing I want to talk through is the down payment amount, because that's such a big barrier for people, and really there's misconceptions about it. So I want to talk through the stat that we have and then the stat that's like the national stat. So I'll say it and then you guys can go around and kind of like say your thoughts. Here we go. 40% of our clients put 5% or less down on their first home. I'm going to say that one more time. 40% of our clients put 5% or less down on their first home. And in 2022, the National Association of Realtors found that the average down payment on a house or condo was 13%. So we're kind of beating that statistic, but it's still in both cases less than 20%. Tell me your thoughts. Anyone can just jump in.
Well, is the national one, do they have how many people put 20% or more? Do they give that stat?
I do not have that stat.
Okay. Well, I was curious because, I mean, I know we had a fair amount of people who did 20% as well, but I would just say a lot of that difference is just, it wasn't necessity, it's just like preference. And if you have the cash and you decide how you want to spend the cash, and some people just find it cleaner, they're still kind of thinking in that way, like, this is the way my parents did it, this is the way you're supposed to do it, 20%.
Right.
And we obviously advise, like, talk with your lender, because sometimes if you have the ability to do it, it might make more sense to put that more down. But I mean, the stats show like majority of the time, like majority of our clients, not quite half, but getting close to it, under 5%.
Yeah.
Not just shows how possible it is.
Yeah, not just under 20, under 5%, 40%. And I have a couple more. 20% plus down was 36% of our clients. Yeah. So
and a lot of
people did it.
A lot of that had to do with the market and this Austin we're at, and like, I don't know.
Is that inclusive of investment properties?
Yeah, that's everything.
Okay.
Like of
so
all of our
probably
clients.
a good chunk of that is they had to put 20 to 25% down minimum.
Right.
So I think a lot of that is a misconception of what is required. So as a first-time home buyer, you only have to put 3 to 3.5% down. If you're buying a second home, meaning you've bought before, 5% minimum down, and then for an investment, 20 to 25% down.
Right. So I bet, we could probably figure that out too. A lot of those people who put 20% down were buying investment properties, and they had to put 20% down.
Yeah. A
Do
fair
you remember
amount.
what it was last year or for 2021?
Ooh, no,
We're not prepared.
yeah, we are not prepared. Let me pull that up.
But yeah, I do think, even like you were saying, some people choose to put more down, whether that's 20% or 10 or 15. But there are other things you can do with those funds. You can use them to renovate the property. You can invest them in the stock market. You can save to buy another property. You don't have to just buy just one. We have clients that buy a primary and then 6 months to a year later, they want to buy an investment. They want to partner.
Yeah, I will say I just had a conversation with a friend last week before, where he had this arbitrary number of $80,000 that he wanted to have saved for a down payment. And this was just based on online calculators that typically will autofill 20% down. And so we just had a chat, and I was like, you have the down payment now. Like, all you have to put down is 3 to 5%. And this like light went off in his head of like, maybe I can do this sooner then I thought, and we see that all the time. We still hear from people that think, okay, 20%, I have to have 20%, right? And so it's really cool that, with the stat of 0 to 5% and 6 to 10%, that's for 2021. Basically, more than 50% of our clients now are putting 10% or less, which is really cool.
Yeah. And I think to sum it all up is don't let the down payment amount have anything to do with your barrier of entry into the real estate market. It's super important, just like the stock market, to get in. Time matters, and time in the market matters. So if all you have is 5% to put down, take advantage then. And then, and it also depends on what you want your monthly payment to be. You definitely want to talk that over with your lender and keep that in mind.
Yeah.
And the same goes if you have been saving and saving and saving, trying to get to that 20%, and you find this out. I've had calls with clients where that's the case, where it's like, oh, I have 100K saved and I'm ready to, and then we go through the thing, they talk to the lenders, we find the house, and it ends up they only need 30 of it to get, and then it's like, oh my God, I have $70,000 more dollars than I thought I needed for this house. And it opens up oh, now you can buy a house that might need a new roof. It's perfect for all these stuff. But if you, like Jen was saying, investing that into the home, increasing your equity, it opens up a lot of possibilities by going with less money down.
Right. What we're here to do is to show everybody their options. If you want to put 20% down because that's how you feel safe and you want to make sure your payment is a little bit less, amazing. And you have that, great. But we want to make sure that that's not stopping people from purchasing, because if you look at the numbers, really, you buy 2 years sooner because you have the money for a 5% down payment. It's possible that your equity is going to far outweigh what you could have saved. And so it's actually saving you money by putting less down up front.
Yeah. People are really afraid of the PMI idea. But if you just
But I guarantee if you ask well, how much do you think PMI is? It's a nebulous number. They don't know.
Yes.
Whereas once you actually start breaking it down into your monthly payment, maybe it's $70. You're like, oh, I thought it was hundreds.
Yeah, and if
what
you
am I
think
doing?
about if you're buying a $400,000 house, the difference between 10% and 20% is $40,000. You take that amount of PMI and even put it over 5 years, it's not going to equal $40,000 worth. It'll save money just by paying that PMI until you get that equity in the house, and then you can get it reappraised, get out of your PMI, or even if you pay it for a while, it's not going to, that $40,000 could do a lot of good elsewhere.
Not to mention all the money that you're going to be spending on rent while you're saving that whole time.
Right.
And if you're house hacking, maybe your income producing in that 2 years as well.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Bottom line, options. We just come across so many people who are like, I don't think I'm going to be able to buy in the next couple of years. And then we talk to them and they're like, wait, I have everything I need. So we just want to make sure that if you're listening, that is not you. And I just looked up our 2021 stats, almost exactly the same amount of people put 0 to 5% down, 40% 2022 and 42% 2021. So tons of people, I think they work with us and then they realize, wait, I could do a lot of other things with this money. We also work with a lot of very smart people who, when they see their options, they're like, okay, I don't have to go with the status quo. Mm-hmm. So
I actually put 0 down on my first house and 3.5% on my second house.
Hell yeah. 0% down. We have that too.
I did a USDA loan.
Yes, USDA, which you have to be.
It was
Anchorage.
15 years ago.
Yeah. But they still exist. And if you want to be kind of outside the city limits, it's possible. So you just don't know until you start this process what is available to you. Did you know that was possible before you started the process?
Not before I started. I was renting and I had no money. I was working at a restaurant. And my realtor was like, I'll pay you to get out of your lease. And this is how much you need to get. I was like, I have $800. He's like, we'll find this loan program. And it was a new house.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
We will not pay you to get out of your lease. Okay, so let's talk about house prices. We have these, you guys can't see this, but I'm going to kind of tell you what it looks like. The biggest and most shocking thing for all of us was that, let's see, was it 34% of our clients bought a house for less than $399 in 2022. And we went through all of those purchases, or at least I did. I think we did in our agent meeting. And so I want y'all to talk about how that was possible, how that relates to now, and like maybe some anecdotes based on who you worked with last year that bought for under $399.
A lot of different ways that it's possible. It could be, because we work in Austin, obviously, but we also work in Pflugerville and Round Rock and up to Leander and then south, like surrounding. So like if you're a little out of Austin, that price point becomes a little more feasible. Same thing with new builds outside of Austin. So that's another way. But a big thing is the market kind of slowed down last year, whereas when the market was insanely hot, there might have been houses priced at $375, but they would go for $425, go for $450, like things are going over ask, where that kind of shifted, and houses that were priced for $415 might go for $385 or $390. So there's a lot of different factors. Specifics, to get it real specific, like just this week, I got a house under contract, and this isn't far out of Austin. It's like 20 minutes from downtown in Southeast Austin for $375. Actually $370. It was priced initially at $385 and it's like dropped a little at $370. So it's just the market shift a little bit of just homes sitting a little longer and sellers being more anxious to sell. Yeah.
Anyone else?
So I specifically remember with a client, let's see, this was in May of last year. So May of 2022, things hadn't quite slowed down too much at that point. I think it was just the beginning. And she was working with a lot of coworkers who had just bought houses and had already talked to a lender. And she said, I think she had already spoke with another realtor as well. And all she was qualified for was an FHA loan, 3.5% down, and basically had no hope. She's like, I'm coming to you and you guys because I think that I want to still give it a go. And I'll be honest, initially I was like, this is going to be tough, but it's a challenge and I want to see what we can do, because I hadn't done an FHA, which is a government-backed loan program where you can put 3.5% down. I hadn't done one of these in probably over 2 years.
Yeah.
And so it was when I started working with her, we found a home under $400K in Southeast Austin in that same zip code that Alan was just mentioning. And we put an offer in FHA, and we didn't even get a counter, and it got accepted, and her and I both just couldn't believe it. And that was, I think, the beginning of a favorable buyer's market. And I think that's something that we're seeing more and more now. We're seeing a lot of our clients get approved for FHA loan programs and them becoming a bigger piece of the market now, which is really exciting.
Yes.
I also had a buyer who bought with an FHA 3.5% down in 2022 under $350 in the same Southeast neighborhood. And I'm happy that this client, we'd been looking at condos in Austin, which for what she wanted to do with her property and how she wanted to use it, a condo wouldn't have been the best way to go. Although the one thing it did have going was the sticker price. But when you tacked on some of the HOA fees, it kind of ended up being a wash where it costs the same amount monthly to be in a slightly more expensive home. And being able to find a home under $350 in Southeast Austin and this buyer had excellent foresight in going, look, this isn't as developed as I want it to be. I'm not as close as I want to be, but I know it's coming and I can stick it out. And I'm in a house now with no HOAs. So I actually think the $350,000 house was less expensive, even with a higher interest rate, than like a $315,000 condo. Yeah. So that was really exciting. And now she's like able to build her business out of her house, and it's really cool. So yeah.
And we are still seeing this in 2023. I just had a client last week go under contract on a single family home for $385 in Leander. And Leander, while it's not central Austin, is like one of the fastest growing cities in America. Has a lot going for it, has a huge stadium where they do concerts, a ton of new construction, great schools, lots of things. A lot of people want to be there. And yeah, I'd say like even now, I have clients coming that are a little concerned that the market's going to heat back up this summer, and new construction is a great way to take advantage of today's prices and continue to save. Sometimes, they're 6 months to a year out. So you have lead time and you've locked in your price and you have time to continue to save. Like we talked about, maybe you want to put a little bit more down payment down, or you want to, maybe interest rates will be a little bit lower in 6 months. So
Right.
there's a lot of advantages to kind of planning that far out.
Yeah, especially when there's talk of interest rates lowering. Because when you buy a new build, you sign the papers, and then 6 months later, you're subject to those rates. And a year ago, that was dangerous, and now it's like, okay, that might be better than the rates today. But I do think that the $399 price point, it's just because we segmented that in our data, but it was just so surprising to us in this, quote unquote hot market of 2022 that ended up cooling down by the end. We still had so many people under $399. It's just
It's impressive too because of the medium sales price of Austin, right?
The median sales price in Austin is $695. So the fact that we had so many people get such good deals is really cool. But also, the people in the $400 to $499, which was 25% of our clients, got amazing deals. It's just like, this is kind of what's happening right now is people are getting, not only they're getting lower sales prices, they're getting new roofs, they're getting seller concessions, they're getting all these things that we weren't seeing in early 2022, 2021, and 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Cool. Yes. Anything else about home prices? Oh, I'm just going to tell you, or tell everybody. So 25% was $400 to $499, 23% was $500 to $599, and then 18% of our clients were $600K plus. Mm-hmm. That goes all the way up to, I think we had a $2 million deal in 2022.
Pretty evenly spread, kind of in that like 300,000 to 600,000 median price range.
Yeah, exactly.
But and above 600, right? If the medium's there, it's like 20%. You said, or 18%. Yeah. It's funny, like a little under a quarter is like what the medium sales price is in Austin, which shows like a lot of it's coming in under that. Because I think people hear that like, oh, the regular house price in Austin is like $700,000. Can't buy there. But like you see all these houses, like the majority of our whole business last year, everyone who bought with us are under that medium sales price. So there are opportunities there.
And can I tie it into down payment? When you're thinking of, let's say, a $500,000 house, if you're putting 5% down, that's $25,000. Now, that's not nothing, but that's a big difference from, help me math right now.
100,000?
100,000, thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
That you're putting down. So it's like maybe you put down less on a home and sacrifice for a little bit of time if you have a higher interest rate right now by like house hacking or getting a roommate or finding some way to earn income. And then if and when interest rates go down a little, if they do sooner than later, hopefully, you can refinance into a lower monthly payment that maybe makes it much more attainable to live without having to house hack it, should you choose or not.
Yeah.
And I would say, I don't think we dissected it this way, but we talk a lot about your first home not necessarily being your dream home. It's a step, right? Mm-hmm. So likely a lot of the clients that bought under 400, it was their first investment, right? Their first home. And the clients that bought 600 or above, it was their second, third, fourth home. And they, this was their dream home. This was their forever home. This was their third step in the process.
That's a great point.
Yeah. I was going to bring that up to the idea, like the biggest benefit group from this, like from houses 400 under, and right now are like younger, like mid 20s to mid 30s people who like might not have had time to save up 80 grand, 100 grand. But you have your careers taking off a little more, you have a little money, you're making decent wages. Interest rates are higher, yes, so your payment is gonna be a little higher, but you might be able to weather that. And if you could do that, rather than wait to get all this money saved. Because the opposite, when the market was super, super hot and interest rates were like at 2.95 or something, every house is going 60K over, and you needed to have like that 60, like you had to have a bulk of cash to be competitive. Whereas right now, especially for first time buyers, like a lot of my clients, especially recently, they've all been like late 20s, early 30s, buying our first house, some single people, some married people, some just couples buying together. But it's like that group is reaping the benefits of right now the most. So like if you are in that group, like it's a good time to like check that out, because you can get in there under the wire, because when interest rates drop, the market will get hotter.
It is just a fact.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're already seeing that
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
mortgage
And
applications.
they haven't even dropped a ton, but they've gone down the last 2 weeks, and
Right.
things have picked
A
up.
downward trend, and already things are multiple
Yeah.
It's a
offers.
false slow. It's heavily factored into the interest rate, and that any change in interest rate up or down affects buyer behavior.
Absolutely. Okay, so you brought up a good point that we also have data on. 52% of our buyers in 2022 were single people. That's so cool.
Yeah.
And most are women. I don't think we segmented it that way in our data, but yeah, 52%, which is over half. 41% were buying in couples, and then 7% they had a partner of some sort. So maybe that's a business partnership or a friend partnership. We have a lot of creative partnerships at Open House, but really cool data to show that you don't have to be in a couple to buy, especially when it's not as competitive.
I also think it's worth mentioning that New York Times stat that came out that now more single women own homes than single men, and I think I love that because
amazing.
it's like it's something that we hear a lot from our single clients. Like I just had one close a couple weeks ago, and we were at the final walkthrough, and she just said, "I never thought I would be able to do this on my own." And to hear that, and go to her with to the closing table right after is really amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And just as a dating tip,
Quick dating advice.
What podcast are we on right now?
but I do, any single friend that goes on a date, I always ask, do they own their home? And yes is like, that's amazing. You're bringing this into a couple. That's so cool. It just I don't know, add something to your plate. That's just something to think about. It makes you more marketable, does it not?
Yes.
I guess so.
Impressive.
It is. It's impressive.
Yeah.
I
Should be a normal question.
Yes, normal question. And then as far as, so last year, 2022, 52%. In 2021, we had 45% single people. And I think that difference accounts for how competitive it was in 2021.
Yeah.
It was just so hard. And people joining their household or their
Incomes.
funds and their reserves and everything together is going to make it a little more possible in a competitive situation. But now that we're not competitive, it's just it was like a breath of fresh air that we're like, yeah, you can put 3% down. You can have, one income because we're not having to spend so much money to get into a house.
And with those seller concessions, I had clients, recently close with their closing costs totaling $6,000 maybe, after their down payment, because we get seller credit to pay a lot of these closing costs. Sellers paying title, sellers paying this, and they got a new roof, and their closing costs after their down payment and all this stuff is equaling 3.5-4% total of the cost of the home, and they're in the house. There's a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah, and I would say it's not even all financial. Buying a home on your own can be a big step, and if you're having to purchase a home and put all of your finances in it, but also it's not move-in ready and you're managing a renovation by yourself and all the vendors can be tough. So being able to buy a home that's maybe a little more turnkey on your own feels more doable.
That's a great point. Yeah. I've heard this more than I have over the past 3 years recently, that it's the cleanest inspection we've ever had. That's because people aren't putting trash on the market because they know they can't. So they're having to do some pre-work. They're having to fix the things that they need to fix. When there was a buyer rush, and everybody was clamoring and lining up outside of houses, sellers could literally just throw their house on the market and they would get 5 offers.
I think we're also not seeing the iBuyers that are notorious for doing that.
Yes, that's so nice. It's so nice. So I agree. Being able to buy a house and feel the security of this roof's not going to go out in the next year. All of this stuff is taken care of for me. That's easier for one person.
Getting a home warranty.
Yes, all of this stuff it makes it easier for a single person, man or woman, because you're one person. It's harder to manage those repairs when it's just one of you. Okay, house versus condo. This is interesting. We had 91% of our sales last year were houses, probably because of what Mandy was talking about. 9% were condos. In 2021, 85% of our sales were houses, and 15 were condos. Talk about house versus condo. We're not anti-condo, but
like Mandy was saying, that notion is that condos are cheaper. That's a big reason why people more. the cheaper, but the HOA fees are astronomical compared to most homes' HOA fees. And I mean, it kind of just depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for like, I just want a condo because I want to live close into stuff. Like some people, condos make the most sense. Like they'll pay the extra to be like right in the mix of stuff. But as like an investment goes, they obviously they don't appreciate as quickly as homes, and they can be harder to resell. Like in the slowdown market we've been in, they're less appealing because homes stick out a little more and the cost differences. I don't know. It's kind of a false. What's the word I'm looking for? A misconception that condos are like cheaper because they might be cheaper price tag, but your cheaper carrying cost or your carrying cost might not be as affordable.
And your ability to be creative with house hacking is heavily limited.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
Yeah.
A lot of our clients want control and flexibility over renting out part of their house or doing a tiny home, and so obviously you can't do that with a condo. So I feel like that's where that stat comes in to the 9%.
And I will say my clients that have bought condos, their number one reason for doing so is because they wanted that lifestyle of being able to live. It was more important to them to be closer to everything than it is to be further away. And they also maybe didn't want to do all the maintenance that comes with the house.
That's a lot of people. People who have had buy condos, it's like, I don't want to do yards. I don't know
travel.
Roof. I don't want to do that. I just like, this is the
I also
move.
think it's sort of the way our city is built. Like in certain cities like New York City, San Francisco, condos are going to be way more common. You don't get single family homes or little bungalows like that close to central Austin where it's walkable. Whereas here, there are a lot of neighborhoods where you can buy single family and still be a 10-minute walk to downtown.
Yes, it's a great point. I think it's a mix of everything that everybody's saying. But yeah, moving on to like our philosophy, and a lot of our buyers come to us because they want to create some sort of income at some point in their home buying process. So maybe it's right now with like a roommate or a sneaky duplex. Maybe it's like we want to live here and then in the future rent this out. And so the ease of that with a house, you just have so much more autonomy. I think you're right. I think we'll probably see a decline in condos. But it's all values based. If your value is ease, and
also lending on condos is a little more complicated.
Yeah, we just had a lender come talk to us about that, and it's tricky.
Yeah, and even if like just having a condo like and getting a roommate, right? It's like how many parking spaces do you get with your condo?
Yeah.
Like how many key cards do you get? Like is it easy just to have a roommate like that like pays you like like rent? Like that's not as clear cut with a condo, which that should be like the easiest form of house hacking is my friends moving in with me, and even in a condo that could be a little tricky.
Yeah. Okay, on that same note of like roommates, house hacking, partnership, because that's been a big one too with the payments. The interest rates are higher this year, right? Higher than they've been over the past 3 years. Tell me some of your clients' ways of addressing that. Like this right now, let's just be honest, in most cases, a mortgage is going to be higher than rent.
Oh, 100%.
So that's a reality. It's not like you're going to save money every month by buying a house. It's not true. But you are building equity, you have control, and you can cut your mortgage payment with the piece that you pay down by house hacking. So what are some good ways that you've seen over the past year or so people supplementing their mortgage?
Well, I've had a lot of it's just having a roommate. One of my clients, Claire, she was buying a house. She was living with someone, a roommate in her rental, and she's like ready to buy a house. And it's a lot of mental state too. Just being like, yes, rent might be cheaper, but it's just going to nothing. Where a mortgage is going to paying your investment down, like it's your home. So like you're paying a little more money, but it's just going towards you.
Yeah.
And her roommate was like, yeah, I want to move with you. She's like, all right, well, I want to buy a house. And he's just going to move in with her. So he's paying rent. And she's like, they were paying, like, she kept his rent the same that they were paying in the rental. And it's just coming off. So she is technically paying a little more, but then she was paying in her rental. But it just makes sense to her because it's my house.
Yeah.
Like this is mine. So, I mean, it's a lot of it's a mental state thing. I've also had calls with people who are like have incredible rent because they've been in it for like 5 years in a great location. They're just like, I didn't really do it. But that comes back to what's important to them. Yeah. Like if they just want to be in the mix of this cheap rent, I was like, honestly, like you're right. If you like, this is what you want, you kind of have the best version of it. But they're curious, so they're in the mix of it. And maybe when interest rates drop, that's something they want to do.
What do you tell people though? Like if they don't want to move and they have really good rent,
Your first house doesn't have to be a primary.
Yeah.
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 Which means you would stay in your rental. We have people who are like, my rent's $900. We're like, don't leave that. This is not, you can't do that anymore.
Hang on for dear life.
Yeah. But we do firmly believe that ownership is important, and it's, it turns into autonomy and power and all of that. So you can buy a investment property as your first home, so you can get into the market. Actually, Molly did that, who's gonna sell, but she bought a house. She didn't want to. She was living basically downtown, actually, like right
Still is.
here.
Loves her
still
location.
Loves it.
Yeah.
And she bought an investment property, put a renter in there, and she's had it for a couple of years, and she's gonna sell, and she's gonna turn that money that she made from that house into her dream situation where she's building a house on land with her family.
She will likely make over $150,000, and this is an investment that she made like just barely 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So she didn't have to give up that lifestyle. I was also going to share about I've had a handful of people in romantic partnerships where the gal buys the house, and of course all of the equity and like partnership can be laid out in different ways, but like the female was the one on the loan and on the contract purchasing, but their partner is going to help pay their mortgage, right? And so I think that's a way too where you have two people, you're paying rent, it's gonna like each portion that you're gonna pay per month is gonna be a little bit higher, but then you can start owning a home and building equity.
Yes.
And I'm having going through a personal thing right now where I bought a home and my mortgage is a little higher than what the market rate is for that area currently. This is in downtown Bastrop, but if and when rates go down, I will absolutely refinance into a lower rate, which will lower my monthly payment. But I'm also thinking about pulling a tiny home on that will hopefully offset the mortgage cost quite a bit and allow for more income potential, and pay off the tiny home, and in turn then just hopefully cancel out my entire mortgage for that house. So like I love the freedom that comes with having a home with the ability to do things like that.
Love
And
that.
the partnership angle, like, which if you are happy with your rent and like you do want to get in the thing, if you have a friend who's looking to buy but they might be like light on cash or whatever, you could always partner with them and just to get equity in a house and get like an investment going to start your like real estate investing. And you don't have to move, like kind of what Molly did, but like if like a friend's looking to buy a primary and they need some help financially, or they just want to partner in it to help them with that mix, like you can get in that way as well.
Yeah, and you have an equity stake, and you can decide when they're going to sell. They're going to live there 5 years. You get your, 10% or whatever it is, and that was your investment into the real estate market.
It's just like investing in like a stock or
Yeah.
anything like that. It's like you're investing in that house to grow in value.
Yeah.
And we do get clients that are like, I don't want a roommate. I don't want a house hack. I don't have any partners, but I want to buy. And so figuring out what your goal is and how you're going to get there, we can find a solution for you. So I had a client take advantage of a really great seller incentive with a builder for new construction. She only brought $13,000 to the closing table. So that's her down payment and closing costs. She used the builder credit to do a 2-1 buy down. So she has a 4% interest rate for her first year. So the monthly payment's very doable, very similar to what we were seeing in 2021 and early 2022. And she has 2 years to strategically decide when she can refinance, when the rate's going to make sense for her, and be able to stay in that home and live all by herself.
It's so cool.
Love that.
The 2-1 buy down that you mentioned, and buy downs in general, it's kind of a weird and nebulous idea that you wouldn't know because they don't teach this stuff. But basically, you're paying money up front to buy your rate down to ideally save money in the long run. And that's a really great way to address these rates because the rate affects the monthly payment. So there's just different ways. I mean, it just makes so much sense to explore this process because there's so many different avenues with which to lower your payment.
Yeah, and it doesn't cost anything to explore them. Like
Right.
getting on the phone with a realtor, talking to a lender, like the most it would cost is a credit pull to get a pre-approval just to really see, and that's if you're further along down the process. You could have conversations for free and just kind of get that knowledge.
Yeah, I also like the idea. I mean, everybody here is talking about, but this doesn't have to all be done on the closing day. It could be done in phases. So, Mandy, you bought your house, you renovated it while you lived there. That was phase 1. You're going to pull in the tiny home, that's phase 2. Pay off the tiny home, that's phase 3. It's like all these things, you're setting yourself up to be in a better position later on.
Totally.
Do you think you'll stay in your bachelor house forever?
No.
Like this is it. It's so good.
Also, and to bring that up, because someone was asking me real quick about my other house that I own in Austin. I lived there for 5 years. Like, sometimes there's so much pressure to like go, buy, keep going. And in that 5 years of time, what was once a neighborhood that was traditionally underserved is now has more to offer its community. Now there's coffee shops, there's breweries, there's restaurants, there's more grocery stores, where 5 years ago it wasn't there. Now it is, and now it's a much more desired location. And I kind of approach everything with that mentality, especially in a place that maybe isn't as top of mind or high priority. I just know that the potential for it to get somewhere in the next couple of years, if you can hold it out, is always there. So I always want to encourage people to be open-minded. If they can't, buy in 78702 or 04 today or wherever they want to live, that doesn't mean it can't happen, but be open-minded about the steps you take to get there.
Yeah.
And thinking about what little comfort can you give up for a long-term reward, right? Is it location? Is it a higher monthly payment? Is it sharing a space? In most of these scenarios, there's some level of a little discomfort that people are willing to go through for, an investment, or is it, even putting a 10% down payment. You've saved for a while and you're deciding, okay, I'm going to invest into this house, into the Austin market. But something to think about, especially if you're doing it with a partner, is what is that for you? What are you willing to maybe give on a little bit, especially in this market?
Yeah.
That goes to we just got on a contract. She's looking at her dream neighborhood. It's the very, very top of her budget. She can get in there for a house that needed work. It was just and we were showing there, and she was close to offering in that area. And then she was deciding between 3 houses essentially, and she eventually just emailed me for the house that was further away for cheaper by $50K, $60K actually. And she decided, she was you know what, I'm sending I'll sacrifice for now and be in this. And it's not the house she's finding is better quality. It's no work really needed. She's just further away, and that's the sacrifice she's making. Right. Because she knows she has that, and then in 3 years, 4 years, the equity in that, money saved, she can get into that dream neighborhood for a house that she isn't going to have to continuously be renovating, because it was the ones that she could afford in there were rough shape.
Right.
And for other people, that's a sacrifice they'd make, is buying into a neighborhood with rough shape because they want to put that sweat equity in.
Right.
But it's all about deciding where your bigger pain points are and what you could do,
Yeah. I like that you brought up that people who are buying 600 plus houses usually have bought before. Because when you think of the numbers behind buying a $750,000 house, it seems wild to people who don't have a house yet. That seems so unattainable. But when you have equity in a house, either you sell it or you take a HELOC or whatever, so many things open up, so many opportunities open up. And that's when you're oh my God, this is actually within reach to have a house that costs $800,000. I never thought I could do this before, but because I made that smart financial decision that made me a little bit uncomfortable, now I'm able to do it.
Oh, yeah. I just remember my best example of this. The 2 couples that we talked about. So it was 2 different couples in 2020 bought together in one house to live together. And it had a garage conversion, which they short-term rented. So they was 2 couples in a house and a garage conversion.
Obsessed.
And they were just together they could all afford this. And I think the price point was in the mid 4s, or maybe low 5s. But, together, 4 people, very affordable. And I had a call with them, and they were kind of looking maybe we'll buy all together again, or maybe we both want to buy it. I think they needed space, but so they decided to buy 2
One
different.
person in there was no, we're not doing this
Buying
again.
2 different houses, but
Going through that pandemic too.
because of this time spent and the money saved on mortgages, because they're splitting it 4 ways, and they have a short-term rental and all this stuff. They're separately buying 2 different houses at like the 550 to 650 price point. And what's hilarious is the houses aren't on the same street. One house is away from each other.
Yeah, that's so cute.
So they're still getting to be like
house.
right there, right next to each other. Like literally one house separates them. They were joking about like
my dream.
tunneling
Yeah.
under their house to each other so they could still kind of be living together.
That's so
but that's
cute.
like altogether $500K. Now two separately are like buying above that price point because of that sacrifice they made for like 2.5, 3 years. Like
Yeah.
just be able to save money, build equity. And the house, they're keeping that house together as a, that's for people to like rent out long term. So they'll just hold that as an investment together.
So cool.
I want to bring up kind of like on partnerships and stuff is I don't know when society introduced this like idea that like we have to do things alone, but like once upon a time it took a village, and I think that's still the case. And if that's something that you can be a part of to make your goals come true, or not to sound too cheesy, make your dreams come true, but like it really is sometimes takes a little village to get there, and I think that's totally okay, and I want to continue normalizing that.
I love it. You have a good example of that too. I guess
They've been on the pod.
They've been on the pod.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We love them.
What
Yeah, we do.
episode?
Yes, I don't know what episode.
Okay.
We'll maybe link it.
But I would say like all of us in one way or another, in a lot of multiple ways, are living what we're reaching here.
Oh,
So
yeah.
buying in an area that we see has the opportunity to develop over a long period of time. Similar to Mandy, I bought 8 years ago now in a neighborhood that, while was very centrally located, was not not the best, didn't have like $1 million homes in it. But I think the opportunity for equity is greater in those areas. When you start lower, you have way more room to grow. Whereas if you're buying at the top, in the top tier of homes in that neighborhood, you're going to have less ability for that to grow over time.
I agree. That's a great point.
Yeah. And I mean, that's an example of central. You did it centrally as well first. And then, I mean, you have foresight. Everybody here has such foresight because we know the city so well. But like the idea of buying a little bit outside. So Bastrop is how far from here?
It usually takes me on Tuesday mornings to get into our meeting 35 minutes, and that's if there's a little bit of traffic. That's if I catch red lights.
In some cities, that's just a normal commute.
Yeah.
But like you chose to live in a city outside of Austin because it was affordable, growing. Like a lot of our clients over the past couple years have chosen cities outside of Austin. And that's, they quote unquote sacrifice location, but they really are just like in cool little cities outside. But it's all about where you feel the most comfortable sacrificing and where you are going to draw your hard lines. Like there's like me and Alan have drawn our hard lines with location. We'll buy something that should probably be torn down if it's in the right location.
We
and like,
have.
Yeah, we.
Now we will.
No.
Yeah, we have done that.
And that's two separate ends of the spectrum. But again, like we had to sacrifice. We couldn't have our dream home in our dream location because we were just starting out. We didn't have the funds. We didn't have the resources. So I think it's the biggest takeaway should be thinking about all these things in a creative way, thinking about your options and thinking about like where do you want to be eventually. Maybe not be where you are right now, but that's okay. I wanted to also go through our demographic of the clients that we served in 2022 because it's just interesting. So 91% of our first-time buyers, that's a lot, were somewhere between the ages of 25 and 35. So a large majority of our clientele is that millennials?
I think that's Gen Z.
The Gen Z get in
Gen
there?
Z.
No.
25?
How are the Gen Zs? 25 is
They're Gen Z now.
right?
Yeah, I think they're
Now.
now they are, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is
But that makes sense. Like you graduate college likely, you are kind of in your first careers, you
Yeah.
maybe like have your first long relationships. And you're at an income place or even like a lifestyle place where you're like, I know I'm going to be here for a couple of years, right? You're not
at 25.
Yeah.
Yes.
The
And that
wanderlust is a little gone.
Yes.
And that comes into that thing like maybe you've been in your career like 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and you're like I was talking about making good income. Maybe not saved a ton of money up yet, but you have good income, so like low money down,
Right.
times to get into the house. Yeah.
I mean, the number one thing I would say as advice to someone who's in their 20s, low 20s, is to buy a house early as soon as you can. So if you know anyone who's in their 20s, or if you are yourself, like that, it has to be the number one thing that helped all of us to get to where we are.
Yeah. Just adding my last, 3 of my last 5 contracts under were all in their 20s. It was great.
That's so cool.
I'm getting teary-eyed.
I know.
Yeah, I don't even know if I thought about it in that way when I was 21 buying my first house. I was like, I'm an investor. And I was like, no, why am I paying rent? Like my mortgage could be.
Yes. And some people that just doesn't occur to, right? They're just like, everybody that they know is renting. Everybody they know probably has roommates. And that's just the status quo. And so if we can just reach a small percentage of them and get them to buy early.
Especially because you are a little bit more willing to sacrifice when you are 25,
Take on all the roommates.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Rather, before you are
a grumpy old
a little
man.
more settled
exactly.
and maybe, want to have a family or something. You're like, I'll house hack. I'll, build a garage apartment, whatever.
Fun fact. I hope that we didn't say this in the last one, but when Alan and I were just friends, I rented out my closet to him. $150 a month.
It wasn't your closet. It was a house with 5 other people in it.
Yeah.
You were Harry Potter.
Stuff is your landlord.
No, it was she wasn't living in my house.
No,
and I'm rent closeting out
it was
the
a rental
boys.
for me too. It was 5 of us living together.
You were
and then
subletting.
We were subletting.
The landlord definitely didn't know about people sleeping in the closet.
No.
This reminds me of New Girl.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
I was the new girl.
Yeah.
I was so adorkable. You don't even know.
Yeah. Adorable.
You love Dirty Dancing.
Do we have anything else we want to share from 2022?
No. I can't.
I think just to compare where we are now to 2022, it's really exciting that we are not in a climate where you have to put in probably, 3 to 5 offers to secure the one. It's not as much of a fight. Sure, we're dealing with interest rates, but that's the beauty of being linked up with a creative lender that can show you all of your options. I just feel like we're in a time now where, if you have, 3 to 5% down and the monthly makes sense, I feel like it's a great market.
Yeah.
I love it.
I mean, I will just say for the people who are hesitant too, because a lot of the calls, especially right now, I think interest rates are going to go down a little more, or I think the prices are going to drop.
Go down.
And if the interest rates go down, the prices are not going to go down. No. And if the prices are going down, the interest rate's always going to be around here. One of the things I say with people on the call is the right time to buy is when you can and you're ready.
Yeah.
Because, and if someone might buy and then maybe prices do drop in 6 months, but you can't know that because the opposite could be true. Interest rates go down and prices go up and we're competitive again.
Right.
If you have a house and interest rates go down, you can refinance. You already have your house. Run the numbers to figure out what your monthly payment is. If it's doable, people are kind of waiting on the fence to get that really, really, really good deal, the deal of the century type thing. There's always going to be a deal. There's always going to be the next house. There's always going to be we should wait because of this. Just, I wouldn't sit on your hands too much about it because the market's always shifting. It's going to be advantageous to someone at some point, always. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'd say if you want to buy and think you can't, don't tell yourself no. Don't let anybody else say no. Maybe you need a little bit more time. Maybe you need a plan, a timeline, a strategy, but find out what that is. Ask good questions. Find out who you need to talk to. And if you're not excited or not wanting to buy a house, ask yourself why too. Ask why, is it because you think you might be moving? Is it because you feel unsteady about your job? And ask those questions to yourself and ask an expert as well.
Yeah, because there are good reasons to not buy, but you don't want to just create those reasons and tell them to yourself. So you want to find out if those reasons apply to you, because we've had conversations where it's been I don't think you could do this yet. You might need 6 more months of savings, or you might need to improve your credit score. There are reasons why you would need to wait, but if you don't know those reasons, you'll just tell yourself that you can't do it for so many reasons that aren't true.
If you don't have a plan, you're not fixing those reasons.
Right.
You're not going to change anything about it.
Yes. Lenders will give you a literal plan. if you're not ready, or if you need to improve your credit score, if you need to pay down some debt, they'll tell you exactly what credit cards pay down. It's really wild.
I remember that was so big for me when I first started running the numbers and getting pre-approved for the first time. We had a lender who we still work with, Melanie, that had a spreadsheet that broke down what my monthly payment was going to be and what my cash to close was going to be. And that gave me so much confidence, just knowing what the numbers looked like in different scenarios of, here's 3%, here's 5%, here's 10%. That gave me the confidence that I needed to be like, okay, this is comfortable. I'm moving forward. But had I not done that, and I think even as a realtor at the time, I was nervous to start that process, but it's so not intimidating like you might think that it is. And you get online and you read all the things, but talking to real people, real lenders and realtors, I think it brings a lot of ease. And
I feel like I'm on the other side of the spectrum. I'm the type of person that tends to jump in head first and ask questions later. And if you relate to that, it's possible for you too. Having a plan is important, and having people to help kind of like provide a structure around what you need to do in order to achieve your goals is great. But like, honestly, I believe really anything can be done with the right vision. I really do.
Yeah. If you have a goal, you can get there. What else? What other cliche things can we say? No, I agree. I think it's a nice thing to realize that you have at your fingertips, you have access to people, us, who can help you get to where you need to be. And like they said, like we've literally told people it's not a good time for you. Mm-hmm. And so if you need that, or if you need someone to say like this is a good time or this isn't, I know it's hard to trust a real estate professional